we're going to overview a conversation between Prophet Muhammad and some Christian scholars who were trying to present and win an argument against the Prophet. The Christians came to the Prophet with their belief that God united with Jesus, and so Jesus was the Son of God. They wanted to hear Prophet Muhammad's opinion on the matter and told him that if he accepted their claim, he would also have to admit that their religion was better than Islam. Well, the Prophet didn't accept this claim, obviously, and the debate started. His first counter-argument was that, according to the Christians' logic, the eternally pre-existent God united with his son Jesus, and that this means that something eternally pre-existent became something with a beginning. Jesus, after all, had a beginning, being born. He also pointed out that the reverse would then be true, namely that if Jesus joined with God, Jesus would become eternally pre-existent like God. It would also mean, as he said, that the eternal being God would become contingent, and the contingent being Jesus would become eternal. The Christians continued to listen, and the Prophet explained how the idea of something eternally pre-existent becoming something with a beginning was totally wrong. The reason he gave was that something eternally pre-existent couldn't change by some revolutionary means. Vice versa, he said, something with a beginning cannot become something that is eternally pre-existent. Prophet Muhammad went on to offer an interpretation of the Christians' claim that maybe resolved this problem. He suggested that maybe the Christians, by saying God united with his son, just meant that God was conferring on Jesus special respect, and that no other person was worthy of that respect. The other argument Prophet Muhammad used against the Christians' claim was that if they meant by unity that God chose Jesus especially from amongst all his other servants, then that meant that Jesus indeed did come into existence, and then became superior to all other creatures by uniting with God. It also meant that both Jesus and the special characteristics he acquired through joining with God came into existence. This, in effect, refuted the whole argument that they had presented to him, Prophet Muhammad said. The Christians said,
"What we meant is that God gave Jesus great miracles and then made him his son, as it were to glorify him."
Prophet Muhammad queried if that were the case, why wasn't, for example, Moses singled out and glorified in this way by God? The Christians fell silent, except for one of them, who came forward and asked Prophet Muhammad a question.
"Isn't it true that the Muslims say of Abraham that he was the Khalil, meaning friend of God?"
Prophet replied that was correct, and that Muslims did indeed say that of Abraham. The same Christian then asked,
"If Abraham is called the friend of God, why can Jesus not be called the Son of God?"
The Prophet responded by explaining the real meaning of Khalil, namely that it is neediness and poverty, meaning that Abraham was called Khalil because he needed only God and was cut off from all other worldly desires. The Christians then said,
"In the Bible, it is written that Jesus said, 'Grow towards my and your Father.'"
The Prophet replied to this that surely all other people to whom Jesus had addressed these words would then also have the same right to call themselves sons of God. He pointed out that this contradicted the argument of the Christians that Jesus was the Son of God because of his special status with God. The sentence the Christians had just used actually proved that being a son of God was just as true for anyone else, which refuted their entire line of reasoning. The Christians again fell silent and then confessed to him that they had never met anyone who could debate in the way he did. They asked for time to ponder over everything he had said, and within 3 days they converted to Islam.